Welcome to Did You Know the Heart of It, a short podcast from Gloria Deo Academy. In each episode, we unpack the heart behind our school's practices and philosophies so we can grow together in our shared mission to raise lifelong worshipers, lifelong learners, and lifelong servants. Whether you're driving, folding laundry, or catching a quiet moment, we're glad you're here. This episode is about early and often, a unique approach to collaboration. And we have Miss Amie here from the Little Schoolhouse. Hi, Miss Amie.
Hi, Robin. Thank you for having me.
Well, first off, what is meant by the phrase early and often in regards to academics and behavior?
I think that's a great question to start with. Early and often is used fluently on campus, and I'm not sure that all parents really understand what that is, so I'm excited to talk about this today. Early and often is not just a tool that we use at school with teachers and administrators for academic or behavior, even relational purposes, but it is a means of communication with our parents. So I'd love to break down what early means and what often means.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Let's do it.
So early obviously means don't wait. So when an issue or a concern is addressed immediately, then things don't have a chance to escalate. And we are able to come up with quicker, simpler solutions and prevent these long-term consequences. So in a classroom setting, early could mean as early as the first day of school. It could mean as early as the beginning of a new grading period or the first time that something is introduced in the classroom or a new rule or expectation is set in the classroom. Early just means don't wait on it.
Okay.
And then often, to me, means however many times it takes. So the consistency of handling these issues or concerns every time they arise, whether that means more than once a day or twice in 1 week or the third time in a row, by doing it often, it strengthens the connections with the students and the families. And then there's no surprises along the way. We don't wait for a pattern to become a problem. Instead, we address early and often. And I think it's important for parents to understand that early and often doing that at GDA does not equate to being overly strict. It's just a tool of formation, not just correcting. And so it keeps us from being reactive and it helps us to be really intentional.
And to be intentional up front.
Absolutely. From the very beginning.
Yes. I think this is a whole new way of parents to shift their mindset, because if we came from a public education background, in my opinion, what I'm thinking is most educational settings, it's going to be pretty quiet the first several weeks of school.
Right.
As students are typically a little more better behaved, or at least that's what I found as an educator.
Right.
And then it's not until about October we start having some ongoing patterns.
Really comfortable.
They got really comfortable. Then we start having some disciplinary or behavior academic things that need to be addressed, and it's scaled up by then.
That's right.
This is early and often method is going to help our parents shift their perspective. We're actually trying to get in front of these potential patterns of academic and behavior up front and to really get there early. So you would see more of this happening in the first few weeks of school.
Right.
Hopefully than you would later in the year.
That's right. And when that happens and you see those within the first few weeks or say even the first quarter, and it's effective and it's intentional, then you don't see it again.
Because the rest of the year is smooth sailing.
That's right.
Now, this early and often method is often applied to a scale for academic and behavior progress. Can you explain a little more about this scale to our parents and give us some examples?
Yeah, I would love to. So I think if we take early and often and we equate it to a scale of, let's say, 0 to 10, you can think of it as a measure of responsiveness and consistency while we're addressing these school issues. So a 0 would be non-existent, no issue, no problem, nothing, the perfect student. And we all know, of course, nobody is perfect. All the way to 10, which could equate to suspension.
Like worst case scenario.
Yeah, worst case scenario ever. And so our teachers and our administrators, we're trained to address things, let's say, like at a 2 or a 3, which means that we're able to do intervention immediately. It becomes routine, and even for the smallest of concerns.
This might be something really small, like I'm just thinking of like not staying quiet when you're in line for the potty.
Sure.
Something very minor.
Yeah, something very minor. Blurting out in class or not staying quiet in the hallway or non-responsive in class, whatever that might look like. So what we're able to do then, because it's early and often, is that issues are identified quickly, they're addressed consistently, and then followed up with care and purpose. And so when we address things on that scale of early and often, let's say at even a 1 or a 2 or a 3, and we do that early and we do that often, then things typically never reach beyond, let's say, a 4 or a 5, or God forbid, up to past a 6 or a 7 to a 10. And so I think the mind shift in parents in that is that when they come to me in my office as dean and I'm addressing these things early and often, they are at a 2 or a 3. But in a parent's mind, they're an 8 or a 9 because they've been sent to the dean or they've been sent to the office.
But really, for us at GDA, we don't ever want to wait until a student is at an 8 or
right. We would never wait that long because it's just a detriment to everyone involved, right? The students themselves, the parents, the class, the teacher, me. I don't want to deal with an issue when it's become an 8. Like, where do you start?
And as you're talking about this, we had another podcast episode on discipleship and discipline. So when you're addressing early and often at a 2 or a 3, this is all in the context of discipleship and a student's heart.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they're just little baby steps along the way.
I love that this method, and we'll talk a little bit how it applies specifically in academics, and then I'll ask you how it applies in behavior.
Okay.
But I really love, especially having 4 boys, that it is instilled a respect in them, respect for authority, but also that there is love and obedience, because this early and often it's also another way of showing love to our students.
Right. I love you enough to teach you, and I love you enough to want you to learn, whether it's discipline, obedience, those things that happen in the classroom.
Well, let's talk about how this applies to academics specifically. How do we see early and often when it comes to academics for a student?
I think it's really powerful because we aren't just transferring knowledge, we're forming executive functioning skills and intellectual habits that are going to last a lifetime. So when we address something early and often in academics, whether it's a struggle on a specific concept or skill, or a poor grade, or missing assignments, or late homework, when we do that early and often, it helps prevent these gaps in the learning process, and these concerns are addressed immediately. And so again, as a form of communication, it's a chance for teachers and parents to collaborate and to create a plan of success that's focused on that student's issue at hand, whatever that may be in the academic realm.
This is super important for our parents as co-teachers in our collaborative model to ensure our students, like you said, don't fall behind and end up with learning gaps in the process.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, what about behavior? How can early and often apply in behavior? We've talked about that a lot when we mentioned the scale, when students need to be addressed, but could you elaborate a little more?
Yeah, I'd love to. So when we use early and often and apply that to behavior, in the sense that we don't just aim to manage or correct behavior, but we're really shaping virtue. And so, as I said earlier, the early part of that is why we address small things early and then return to them often. It's never just about getting a student to behave or to conform or to comply. It's about training their hearts to love what's true, good, and beautiful. And by addressing these small heart issues as they come up, students learn really that every moment matters. Everything that you do matters. And it's how we form virtues like integrity and humility and respect that matter not just in the classroom, but in life. And so then the often part of that, in terms of behavior, is to build consistency, which again does not equate to nagging. It's not discipline in an after effect. It's discipleship. It's what it means to train up a child in the way they should go. We understand that character isn't formed in a single moment, that it's shaped over time with gentle firmness and grace and consistency. And so by applying this early and often philosophy to behavior, that's what we're able to do.
I love how you brought it back to this is discipleship. I think it's just like for us, even as adults, that we obey God out of love for God. That obedience really just flows out of love for the Lord. And that is what we're aiming at with our students.
So I wanted to add as well, just again, back to that early and often, is that when a student in the classroom is sent to me, we talked about they've had several chances in the classroom. They come to me, it becomes a discipleship moment, that I'm just able to pour into that even more again, because we don't always expect that kids are going to know what to do or how to behave or how to conform or how the structure of that classroom is set. And so those are teaching moments when they come to me, and I can just help to reinforce what's happening in the classroom. We do it quickly, we do it early, we do it often, we get them back to class where they belong.
And now, does this work? Does early and often work?
I think it does. I think the key component to it working is that there is a trust among parents with teachers and administrators. It builds a trust among us all because it creates a culture of accountability. And in that accountability, there's safety and there's respect and there's responsibility. And I think that when our early and often philosophy, both in academics and behavior, it just opens the door from day one. Remember early, the first day of school, if need be, for collaboration rather than conflict. And when we have this ongoing trust with teachers and administrators, with families at home, it builds that trust and things just never escalate to be an issue.
And that's always our goal. One of our goals, at least, is that collaboration between teacher and co-teacher or the parents informing our children. This early and often approach allows teachers to get to know the students and the families and vice versa. And it might be every year. There could be totally different things we're learning through the early and often approach,
right?
Because we have a new teacher or a new classroom and new classmates, and we're all getting to know each other again at the very beginning of the school year,
right?
Applying the early and often approach so that we can have better collaboration rather than conflict, like you mentioned.
Yeah, and I think I want to add this as well, that when there's a really clear understanding of how GDA uses this early and often approach, that when I contact a parent, whether it's by phone or an email or text or even just a quick conversation after school, that parents don't panic when they see my phone number come up or when they see that I'm calling from school.
Oh, that's right.
And to say,
even me as a parent, I panic.
And to say, what did my child do? Because that's not the case at all. And so I joke, but I do often do this when I reach a parent, because we're doing this early and often. I might have to say to them, hi, this is Miss Amie. I'm calling from school. I just need you to know there's no emergency. Nobody's hurt, and your child's not in trouble.
Okay, so what are the three things? There's no emergency.
Nobody's hurt, and your child's not in trouble. It's not about being in trouble, and it's not about this punitive discipline. And so I think if parents really just join us in the collaboration,
it's a partnership.
That's right.
Not a punitive discipline. It is truly a partnership.
They don't panic when they see my phone number, and really being able to talk through that with them. So I have a child, they've come to my office, and it doesn't always follow up with a phone call either. Sometimes, parents might not even know that their kiddo has been in my office. It's that simple.
Sometimes the teacher will just mention it at pickup, the courtyard.
Exactly.
We're just keeping the communication and collaboration going.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much for just talking with us and helping all of our parents to understand the early and often approach, this kind of different way to go about collaboration.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I would encourage, even early on at the beginning of the school year and throughout the school year, if parents ever have any questions or concerns or more detail on how this works, or specifically what it might look like for your child, I invite them to come and see me, come visit with me in my office, and I would love to talk through that with them.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
We know that finding a school that partners in discipling your child without compromising your family's values can feel overwhelming. Gloria Deo Academy offers a collaborative, classical Christian education where your child can authentically live out their faith and thrive academically and spiritually. Find out more at www.gda.academy. Thanks for listening.